with the theft.
I encourage you to get theft.
What? All things the game of bowling.
Helping bowlers.
The hand collapses down.
And I'm going to try to bowl the best I can.
1,000 subscribers.
And I want to challenge Chad Nelson.
Tom Corbin.
Jason Belmonte.
Well, good Monday evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bowling with the Fef, a platform for you to share your unique bowling story live on our YouTube channel. Hope you like the new show open. I kind of whipped that together yesterday really fast. So I'm glad that worked out. 10-Pin Ben checking in. Yo, good to see you here. I know the time difference is a little strange because 10-Pin Ben is in the UK, but yeah, I'm glad to see you here. This is not the first time we have interacted, if you couldn't tell. We've got some good stuff coming up that I'm going to tell you about soon that involves 10-Pin Ben, and he's actually coming on our show too as well. So lots to discuss on the 10-Pin Ben front, as it were. But like I said, just a pleasure to have you on live. If you are like Ben and are on live with us, feel free to chat it up in the live chat. It's open right now. If you're watching on replay, leave a comment. I see them all. And hopefully we will get in touch that way. Love to talk to all of you who are fans of the show and of bowling in general. Well, yesterday, Anthony Simonson took his 14th PBA Tour title at the PBA Pete Weber Missouri Classic. Simo qualified fifth, ran the ladder, defeating AJ Johnson, Matt Russo, EJ Tackett, and Bill O'Neill. And oh, baby, that semifinal match between Simo and EJ lived up to its billing. Tackett forcing Simo to double in the 10th frame on a lane that he didn't seem all that comfortable on, but he made it work just in time. Got a couple light swishers to carry and went on to the championship match where he took care of Bill O'Neill. Another title for Anthony Simonson in just what's been a tremendous career for him so far, and it only gets better and better. PTQ happening earlier today for the PBA Indiana Classic. These are the advancers, not in order. This was another thing I kind of threw together really fast. Arturo Quintero, averaging about 246 through that 7-game qualifier. You got Peter Fox, Brandon Flora, Dio Bernard, Pontus Anderson, Benji Martinez, Tan Churn, Eric Jones, Nate Stubler, who has been on the show once before, Bailey Maverick, and Nathan Rust LaJoy joining the regular field in Indiana. That tournament starts in earnest tomorrow. TV for the finals is Saturday at 6:30 p.m. Wisconsin time on FS1. Well, this is exciting. Something brand new that I haven't delved into just yet, but I'm going to kind of dip my toe in the water. Are you ready for some merch? Because Bowling with the Fef merch is coming. We are looking to start a merch store. And that will be coming soon. But right now, you can be one of the first through the door. You can bust through the door just a little bit early. We're holding a pre-sale for items like t-shirts and hoodies. There's 2 different designs, a variety of adult sizes. There are no youth sizes with these. But if you go to bit.ly/BWTF pre-sale, it's all lowercase and it is case sensitive. That'll be up through St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. You can get your orders in for those shirts and hoodies. And on St. Patrick's Day, we will collect all the orders and ship them out. So after that, at some point, we'll have a more permanent merch store. But for now, it's the pre-sale. And this is the first time we're getting them out there. This is a partnership that I have with Sam Zappa Henriksmeyer to get out quality apparel with the Bowling with the Fef logo and name on it. And I cannot wait for this to start. I've got a couple coming my way, so I'll be able to wear them on camera and show you what they look like. But again, that address, bit.ly/BWTF presale. All lowercase. It is case sensitive. Okay, 10-pin Ben saying he was some animal, as in Simo. Yeah, absolutely. Flush in the pocket, Derek saying, hey, buddy. Hey, Derek. Good to see you here live. Nate Stubler is tearing it up. He's great. I saw him bowl live at the World Series last year. He is something. He's going to be a star. And if you want to copy link, you might have to elaborate on that one, Ben. I'm not sure what you got there. And this is what I was waiting for. Max, who's been on the show before, says, yes, finally some merch. And, we're starting slow, but there will be more as we make some time. But like I said, just kind of dipping our toe in it for now. Watch for more as the weeks pass by. And thanks in advance to everyone who checks it out. Really appreciate that and hope that you enjoy seeing that kind of stuff. Well, Bowling with the Fef is brought to you by Chip Magnet Salsa. If you haven't tried Chip Magnet yet, what are you waiting for? It is time. Chip Magnet is a salsa company. They are based in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. They distribute salsa, relish, barbecue sauce, and other food products to stores in more than 38 states and Canada. If you're in the Twin Cities of Minnesota, you can get it at Whole Foods, Nolan's Festivals, Kowalski's, Lunds and Byerly's, and most all small co-op stores. And you can always find it at chipmagnetsalsa.com. And if you enter this promo code at checkout, BWTF2024, if you order $30 or more in product, the fine folks at Chip Magnet will give you a 25% discount with no limit. So a great opportunity to stock up on the planet's best salsa, Chip Magnet Salsa. Raise your snack standards, and as always, a huge thank you to the fine folks at Chip Magnet for supporting bowling and Bowling with the Fef. Derek wants to know if I'm going to sign any of it and increase the price. I'm not going to increase the price. It might take a certain kind of marker to sign these. There's a couple that will go with a traditional Sharpie. I'd be happy to sign them if that's what people want. We can absolutely do that, but certainly no price increases. These are, I hope they're affordable. I hope you find them that way, and they, no interest in jacking up the price anymore on this type of thing. So let's bring in our guest. He had parents that ended up owning the bowling center where he started in our sport in Richfield, Minnesota. He has bowled and coached all over the Twin Cities metro area and is currently part of a coaching trio at St. Anthony High School in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. Tom Mitchell is joining us live from Minneapolis tonight in an episode we are calling The Godfather. Tom, welcome to Bowling with the Fef.
It's an honor to be here, Andrew, and thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about this. Airport was a place where I spent quite a bit of time in my high school years. We'll kind of get to that when we get to that part of your story. But great. I want to start out with a rather exciting development that happened yesterday, as a matter of fact. Jessica Boyer, who is your goddaughter, and the young lady who you saw in the graphic in this picture, lit them up at the association tournament, the Twin Cities Open Championship at Park Grove Bowl in St. Paul Park, including her second career 300 game. So a big congratulations to Jessica. And I got to start with that. What are your thoughts about that? How excited are you for it?
Absolutely excited. I mean, I couldn't be happier for her. It's her second one, and to bowl it at the Twin City Open Championship. I mean, it doesn't get much better, right? Yeah. I mean, bowling it in a big tournament. I will have to say she still has a few to go to catch up to me, and she'll appreciate that comment.
I can tell you two have that kind of relationship.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. For sure. We battle back and forth, but it's all in fun, and love her very much. Couldn't be happier for her.
Max says that he has the first ever, though. Check my phone for photo. I think he's talking about a little like coffee mug that he's got with the logo on it. We haven't started with those yet. Maybe somewhere down the line we get into that as well. But yeah, Jessica's fantastic. I was lucky enough to meet her at the PWBA stop a couple of years ago at Cedar Vale. You know, and of course I had to talk to her. And while we're on that topic of you reminding her, she's got some 300s to shoot before she catches up with the Godfather.
Right.
She told me that she's the better bowler. She said she's got her first 800 and that you still owe her dinner because you made a bet on who could get their 800 first.
Yeah, she's 100% correct. And I do owe her dinner. So, and yeah, I came close, but not close enough, right?
Yeah.
So
797 is no joke. I mean, hey,
it's hard to shoot 800 with both hands around your neck, right?
It's hard to shoot them without both hands around your neck.
Right.
Yeah, there's a reason why 800s are so special.
Yep. So I do owe her dinner.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, she went on to say that overall, you're an amazing guy, hands down the best godfather a goddaughter could ask for. She says you have some mean DJ skills and some good dance moves. Does dancing kind of come with the territory there when you're a DJ?
I always thought that I would DJ so I wouldn't have to dance, but I can shake it around on the floor a little bit.
Yeah. She did, send over some pictures. So we got to kind of get through those. I'm guessing this was a couple of years ago.
Oh, that's quite a few years ago. Yep.
And then of course the more recent times. But the one that I want to ask you about is this one here. Because she mentioned that you guys went skydiving.
Yeah, we did. We had a very dear friend pass from breast cancer, and Jennifer Anderson. And one of her favorite things to do, one of her hobbies, was go skydiving. And at her funeral, a bunch of us were talking about, we should celebrate the year anniversary at some point and all go skydiving. And I'm scared of heights, and I had a few cocktails, and I said, you know what, I'll go skydiving if you guys go skydiving. Well, I can't let down my two goddaughters who were both in that picture. Yeah. And there was definitely a weight restriction, so I put the pedal to the metal, and I ended up losing a little bit over 80 pounds to be able to go and do that with them. Oh, wow. But we did it. And it was something I'll never forget. Never forget ever. Yeah.
I'm afraid of heights right there with you. My sister-in-law went skydiving. In fact, I think it was at the same place, Skydive Twin Cities in Baldwin.
Yep, for sure.
She made it through. I was amazed because, let me tell you, I never will.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this much. It is the greatest amusement ride you will ever go on. If you can get out the door, it's unbelievable how cool it is. So,
see, and Mrs. Beth always gives me a hard time because I won't go on amusement rides.
Jessica was the first one to go out. And when I saw her go out, I was second. And I was like, my other goddaughter is right behind me. I had no choice. I had to go. So, but we hit the ground and had a beer and celebrated and remembered our good friend.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And, congratulations to you for taking the plunge quite literally. But, in the name of something that's meaningful like that is really cool. Look who's watching live. Mitch, Dad is watching. She's at work right now.
Good old Jeffrey.
Yeah, for sure. Derek says, I can't shoot 800 on Xbox, let alone in real life. Hey, Tom, how are you?
Who is that?
So Flush in the Pocket is done by a gentleman named Derek Michaud. He's been on the show, this show twice.
Okay.
But yeah, he's in Maine and is an avid bowler, and like I said, does his own show on YouTube. Kind of in a similar vein to this one, but yeah, he's a big video game bowling guy as well as real life bowling guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, he says sorry for the loss of Jennifer, and
Thank
he
you.
also says he's going off the sheet and challenging me to do my show from on top of the Empire State Building. Wow, how's the internet strength up there?
Yeah,
I'm gonna
well,
need
and the height.
Yeah, yeah, that too. I'm gonna need a.
That's
really
a challenge
long cable.
That's a challenge within itself, right there.
Yeah. My goodness. Okay. Well, we'll have to see about that. I don't know if I can make that happen, but I've been to the Empire State Building before. I just kept my feet on the ground for sure.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah. All right. So let's kind of pivot off of that, DJs and dancing thing, because Jessica also wants me to ask you about your gopher dance. What is the gopher dance?
Well, it came from the movie Caddyshack, and if you remember, when the gopher came out of the hole, he'd always do, this whole thing. Well,
Okay.
Many years ago, going to see a band that's big up in the upper Midwest, which was the Johnny Holm Band. And they would always bring me up on stage and ask me, and they'd get me on stage and start playing that song, and I'd have to do but then they usually let me sing along with another song and stuff too. So that's where the origination came from. And every wedding I've been at as a guest, the DJ ends up playing it, and I have to get out there and do the dance. Yeah. So that's where that came from.
Okay, fair enough. No, good stuff. Let's get into the meat of this, your bowling story. You mentioned that it started pretty early for you. You're 6 years old.
Yep.
Tell us about kind of the circumstances that brought you to this great sport.
Sure. Well, my dad had always bowled. He bowled over at 38th and Nicollet, and at that time we were living on 42nd in Chicago. And then we ended up moving to Richfield when I was 6 years old, and we lived half a block away from Luxury Lanes. And my dad ended up bowling in a league down there, and found out that they had a junior program, and it was a really great junior program. And so I joined. My brother Bob joined, and we had some great coaches there. Don Whips, rest his soul, was my first coach, and taught me everything I knew. And I just wanted to get better from the start. And he was instrumental in getting me there. He was an unbelievably great guy and knew how to coach young kids, which that's a gift right there, and still to this day, my bowling is very traditional because of it, but yeah, I started bowling junior leagues there. And as we got a little bit older, ended up bowling in a lot of the traveling junior leagues. I ended up bowling in the junior CBAs when they were there, now called MJBT. I remember bowling the Patty Ann tournaments down in Albert Lee with a bunch of people, bowled a little bit in college, and just fell in love with the sport. So
there is something special, and I'm sure I'm not going out on a limb saying this, but when you've got a small mom and pop style center, and you are able to kind of call it your own, grow up in the game at such a center. I certainly did. I know a lot of others did. Tell us about Luxury Lanes. What was it like? I want to say maybe a dozen lanes.
12 lanes. Yep. And they had some of the first automatic scorers in the Twin Cities. And I think because they were first generation, they ended up breaking down pretty quick. Yeah, bowling in a small house like that and being six houses away from the bowling alley, whenever we could, we would go down there. During summers, when me and the other kids would do pickup baseball games on nice days during the summer, if it was raining, guess where we were? We were at the bowling alley, and learned how to bowl left-handed a little bit. I'm not very good, but I can still probably average about 140 bowling left-handed. So,
Okay.
but yeah, and the friendships you forge during those junior leagues, are because you're meeting kids from other areas of the town that you never met before, because you're stuck usually with the people that live in the 4 or 5 block radius of your own home as a kid. And yeah, we just had so much fun. And, we couldn't wait to see the score, the recap sheets on the next Saturday to see, hey, how close are we to first place, everything. It was a really special time, and I loved every moment of it.
Yeah. The other interesting thing about this particular center is not only is it tucked in a neighborhood, but it's also kind of in a prominent looking spot off of a major freeway.
Yeah.
So you can't really drive through Richfield and Bloomington without seeing it off to the north side of 494 there.
Correct. And, and we had other, centers that we competed with. You had Baden Stadium Bowl was right there. We had Lariat Lanes, both of them are gone. You had Diamond Lake South, which wasn't far. And, I remember competing against Bobby Solstrom from there. I don't know if you remember hearing that name. But his mother was in charge of their junior leagues. You had Cedar Lanes not too far away. So there was plenty of people around that were bowling, and we were trying to get them into airport or luxury lanes for years and years. So yeah, it
as
was
you
great.
said, later became Airport Bowl. So if folks aren't familiar with the luxury lanes name, that's what you're more likely to remember it as, just because it was more recent that way. Tim Peterson says, Tom Mitchell, one of the nicest guys ever. Get better and hope to see you back on the lanes real soon. This must be somebody.
Yeah, Tim is one of the other coaches at St. Anthony.
Okay.
With me, along with Lynn Anderson, and Tim is one of the nicest guys ever. I can tell you that much as well. It's nice to hear from him tonight too. Yeah. So
takes one to know one, right? So you're kind of growing in the sport. You mentioned that you had opportunities in high school and college. For a lot of us, it's interesting to kind of go from that individual dynamic to the team dynamic like you have in high school bowling and college and leagues and things like that. What do you remember about, bowling for teams, for league teams, for high school teams, things of that sort?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as we got old enough to start doing some of the traveling stuff, then, the relationships even expanded, because I think our first set of junior traveling leagues, you basically got drafted to a team. It was almost like they wanted to mix it up. They didn't want all the airport guys bowling with themselves. They wanted you to meet others. And I remember my first team, I bowled with Debbie Johnson, Debbie Lanto, and Lisa Zhang, and who became good friends of mine. And met a lot of them. But that's really when the competition as a team really the bowling got into my system, because you were meeting other really good competitive bowlers. I was one of the better bowlers at airport, but there was also 4, 5, 6 other guys that I could compete with just at airport or luxury lanes. But when you get out there and you see the rest of the world, my goodness, there's a lot of special bowlers out there that I can now say, hey, they've been lifelong friends of mine. It's been great.
Sure.
But that's really, really where it stepped up. I had to step up my game at that point.
Sure. And you mentioned JCBA. If you're bowling events like that, you find out really quick who the cream of the crop are.
Oh yeah, for sure. I never won one. But I think the best I did was up in Alexandria one year, probably about my senior year in high school. And I had a couple of high school buddies go up there with me. And I think it was a little bit different dynamic having those two guys with me instead of my dad. For some reason, I didn't feel as nervous, because those two guys were just like, blow it off, come back, where my dad was maybe a little bit more harsh on that.
Okay.
So,
tough love.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure.
Who were, when you were going through JCBAs, who were some of the stars of the day that, that folks might recognize their names?
Yeah, Carl Fitek, Sam Lanto, John Zhang, Debbie Lanto, my old brain is shutting off right now. So, it's that group. And then, then we had younger guys like Darren Hansen were starting to come around, and the younger guys, I felt like were even better. So, some of those guys that are just, Bill Fabian was another one. Mike Light Jr., good friend back in the day, rest in peace there too. So, yeah.
So you're in high school, you're on this team. Tell me about kind of the format back then. For me, I was in high school in that area in the mid 90s. It was all Baker system. Was it Baker system for you too?
Yeah, it was. And we loved it because it really put the onus on all of us to really bowl as a team. And we were that team from Richfield, which was me and Dan Larson, Gordy Larson's son. Gordy was he and his wife Lois were the original owners of Luxury Lanes. Kevin Lindsay, Bob Spinner, Roland Landry, Rich Gustafson, all of us bowled juniors together. And when we got on that Richfield team, I go and coach the St. Anthony team, and there's no team that now could have ever been as loud as we were. We were almost obnoxious, but we did very well. I don't know if we ever won anything now. Can't remember, but we had a really good time, and we were pretty hard to beat back then.
I believe it.
Yeah.
You said that you competed in college. Where'd you go?
I went to Normandale for a little while. Yep. We called it UCLA. The university closest to the Lincoln area. So yeah, I bowled there and met some other great guys from around the Twin Cities. I went there too, and we had a lot of fun.
Sure.
Yeah,
I bet. As I mentioned off the top, not only did you start at Luxury Lanes, but there came a time when your parents took it over. How did that happen?
Yeah, I don't really know how it all happened. My dad was a president for a branch office for Norwest Bank, and so he was very busy, but loved bowling. And I know that Gordy and Lois Larson wanted to get out, and my dad said, "I'll buy it," and that brought my mom into the fold. Working the counter at the bowling alley during the days while my dad was at work. And then my dad would go from the bank right on over to the bowling alley. And my brother and I were old enough to go and be, pin setters in the back, making sure any balls that got stuck or anything broke down. We were back there working and doing our homework,
Yeah.
And but I don't know. I think they owned it for 5 years, maybe 6 years or so.
Okay.
And then the White family, Dave and Doris White, ended up buying it from my dad. And I think it was just that it got to be too much,
Yeah.
and so they ended up buying it from them. But I tell you, that was some of the best times, having your parents own a bowling alley, because, if you ever needed to have something to do at night, the bowling alley usually closed by 10 o'clock. Well, I knew where the key was.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So it was fun. It was fun.
Well, like I said earlier, it became Airport Bowl, and that was a special place to me because right before I left for college, I went down there a lot and got coached up a little bit by Don White.
Yeah. Great guy.
Yeah.
Great guy.
I spent, a good amount of time on those lanes and certainly learned a lot because, as you know, Don has a stellar physical game and knows how to teach it.
Yep.
But yeah, it's, like I kind of described it early on, a nice little 12-lane center, always very clean, always just, nice people and good quality, lanes and seating and all that stuff. It was always very well maintained.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. Don was, one of the top coaches in the Twin Cities, and I still see him once in a while. I know he was working at Cedarvale a little bit during the pandemic and stuff, but when that kind of calmed down, he left there. But yeah, he's very well respected, and as he should be, right?
Yeah, for good reason. Really nice guy, and yeah, I was always happy to learn from him because he had all the smarts and he knew how to, make you better. That's the long and the short of it. As you kind of moved into adult competition, you sent me the list of centers where you bowled leagues over the years: Airport, Earl Brown, Elsie's, Classic, Twin City Masters of Texatonka. It's all over it. You were all over the Metro.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I started, I ended up bowling. The first place was Earl Brown, because with my background as a DJ, they ended up wow, man, it's escaping my head. Why? The owners of Earl Brown at that point knew my dad. They knew I was a DJ, and they were needing DJs in their bar.
Okay.
And they brought me in and said, you got to hire a couple more people, but you guys are going to be our new DJs. And so working up there, I started meeting people, and I met people like Jeff Miller and Greg Salmons and Steve Sherman and Bob Johnson, rest his soul. And we ended up forming a team and bowling up there on Wednesday nights, and then I'd fill in on other nights too when I wasn't working. So, but that was the first one. But then bowled at the Classic with Scott Sodergren and my buddy Big Mike Humberg and Aaron Pollock, who owns his own pro shop now as well. So bowling with those guys was a lot of fun. And then I ended up bowling at Texatonka in the Twin Cities Masters with Tony Smith and Dave Gollin and a couple other guys on that Twin Cities Masters League. And I ended up there. I ran into Lisa at some tournament, and she said, "Hey, what are you bowling nowadays?" And one thing led to another, and I was on their team that next year. So we had a lot of fun, and that was a great league back then. Great league.
Still is, from what I can tell, even now. That Masters League there is always got top talent from from the Twin Cities, and
Yep.
well-respected bowlers there. One of the other folks that I asked about you was Tom Roberts, and he mentioned that you go back to his senior year of high school. He said you managed a baseball team that he played on. He said you lost touch over the years, but then were reunited through his wife, Sarah. I mean, he's got the love for Van Halen, and I know that you do too.
Absolutely.
And that's not a reach, considering
Right.
you guys have the shirts.
Yeah, there you go. Yep. I figured, once people started making shirts, that were like that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a shirt that no one has. And I'm going to get Eddie Van Halen stripes on the shirt. And of course, you're wearing one tonight too.
Yep.
And so I'm not the only one that has them.
Mm-hmm.
But Tom was like, we want some too. So we had those made, and it's a funny way that I got back in touch with Tom was, I had been friends with Sarah for many, many years. I met her through her dad, Alan Cascino, up at Earl Brown.
Yeah.
And Sarah was bowling in the junior leagues back then, but we became good friends. Sarah ended up in mine and my wife's wedding. And one day, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, I had invited her to a barbecue at our house, and she said, "Is it okay if I bring my boyfriend?" I'm like, "Absolutely. The more the merrier. Come on over." And he showed up, and I kind of looked at him. I'm like, "What's your name?" and then he told me, and I was like, "Oh my God." And he goes, "Yeah, you coached me in baseball. Remember?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I knew, and after I graduated from Richfield, I ended up being the intramural director at the high school for a while. Oh. And so I knew a lot of those kids that for 6-7 years that were behind me as they were growing up and graduating. So so it was fun, and it's great to have that connection again. And then the last few years I was bowling with them at Elsie's.
Okay.
So
yeah. Sarah and I bowled on opposite teams. She was, I think, with Earl Brown. I was with Spectrum in the North Metro Traveling League for juniors in the mid-90s. I know her pretty well. She mentioned that you guys used to work together at Earl Brown. And she said, that you quickly became one of her closest friends.
Yeah. Yep. She's a sweetheart. She is a sweetheart. Yep. Yeah. Love her dearly.
Yeah, for sure. Tom said the first time he ever saw you bowl, you shot 300 in the first game while bowling on a team with Sarah at Texatonka. You remember that?
Yeah, I do. That was during the Twin Cities Masters League, and I ended up shooting two, not the same year, but two of them in that league over the years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. He came down just to watch. I still don't understand people coming to watch us bowl, but it's always fun to see them.
Yeah. Tom mentioned that, the Van Halen thing and just music in general, he said you're a fan of. He says the Round Mound of Sound, as you were known during your DJ days, which is coincidental because, Jeff brought that too. The one and only Round Mound of Sound. He says gave him a great chance to be a very good DJ. He says he owes a lot to you. You had an excellent DJ too at your wedding.
Yeah.
Was that Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff did it, but that was his gift to us, and I think I ended up still paying more for him that night than just his gift, because I had an open bar for him. So, but he did an excellent job, and he'll tell you I taught him everything that I knew. So that's why he became a good DJ, I guess. At least that's what I like to tell him anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that's good stuff. I mean, you know, I never did any work as a DJ, but it always seems like that's the guy or gal that's having fun. Or, you know, it doesn't seem like work. I mean, maybe you disagree, but it's you gotta enjoy that kind of thing if you're in it, right?
Yeah, you do. And, you know, but you have to be cognizant that when you're doing someone's wedding, it's that bride's day. And that bride thinks about that since she was a little girl, what her wedding day is going to be like. So there's still a lot of pressure on you. I did I did the last wedding 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And I said, I just can't do it anymore, just because I would still have dreams, you know, leading up to the wedding of, I can't find their first song. There's a song that's ending and I don't know what to play next, you know. There is pressure, but when you can control a room and everyone is having fun, there's no better feeling in the world, you know. And being able to, you know, be the icing on the cake at someone's wedding. I always said to people, you know, yeah, we don't charge that much, but we're the biggest impact of your day, because people won't remember what they had for dinner at your wedding. They won't remember what kind of cake you had, but they'll know if they had fun and why they had fun. So,
yeah, absolutely. Jeff says, Mitch, I think you should tell him the story about That's My Favorite Song.
Oh, it's a very sweet story, but it's a very fun. When we had the DJ service, we were contacted by the Special Olympics to come and do all their events. And it was an honor to be able to do those. And we'd set up a big sound system on the field when they were out there doing all their field activities. And then we'd bring that in for their banquet. And there would always be a dance afterwards. And we would send out some of our newer DJs to that because, number one, you couldn't mess it up. You could play anything and they would dance, you know. So there was no real pressure there. But we did have one dance, and one of our guys came back. We'd always get together after all the shows and talk about the shows, the good, bad, and the ugly things that happened. And one of our guys came back and said, you're not going to believe this. This kid came up right after we started and said, play my favorite song, and then ran back out to the dance floor.
What is it?
Yeah. A little bit later, he came up and said, play my favorite song. And ran back out to the dance floor. He came up one more time and goes, play my favorite song. And the DJ said, this is it. And the kid just turned around and goes, yeah, which was so awesome. So awesome. I mean, the joy that those kids have, it's, you can't even put words to it at how special it is. So, yeah, it was great to be able to do that. And Nick Bockwinkel was always the MC. So it was always kind of fun to hang out with him.
Yeah, so I bet. Cool.
Yeah.
Sarah mentioned that you guys used to tailgate before Vikings home games. Every home game that became quite a production. She said you had former Viking players come to hang out like Joey Browner. How do you get Joey Browner and former Vikings to come join you as your tailgating?
Yeah. One of my friends who started doing it, he had a little sports store where they sold, Vikings jerseys and shirts and hats and, other sports too, out at Rosedale. And he thought, what a great way to promote my store by putting together a club. And we were the original VWO, Vikings World Order, named after the New World Order from wrestling. And it got to be so popular that we ended up buying a trailer that that was a barbecue that you could do about 150 burgers at a time on it. And I would bring out a sound system and put it on top of his RV, and you could hear it for 2 blocks away. And we'd be just jamming tunes out there. And this was probably started in 96, 95, somewhere in there. So it was before the big 98, 97, 98 years. But we'd have 150 to 200 people that would show up for our tailgate parties. And we would just ask for donations, for food and beers. And it got to be quite a big deal. And we ended up also turning it into where we were giving money back to charities, and I know that the current VWO still does a lot of that community work, which I'm very happy to see that they still do that. So yeah. Cool. Oh yeah. We would get out there. I mean, if it was a noon game, we were out there by 6 a.m. And mind you, that's on a Sunday, and I was probably doing a wedding the night before. So I probably didn't have much sleep,
Sure.
But we weren't going to miss it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that speaks to this next comment that Sarah shot over. She says, you have the biggest heart, would really give you the shirt off your back. Try to help with anything you could. She says, you're funny, a great bowler, and she loves you.
Well, I love her too, and that's very nice of her to say. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Love her to death.
Yeah. Cool. So tell me about maybe some of your signature moments in bowling as you're, in these high powered leagues. I'm assuming you get to a tournament now and then. What would you say is your favorite moment or some of your favorite moments on the list?
Well, my very first 300 was at Airport Bowl, and it was on lanes 5 and 6 during the Twin Cities Hoo-Hoo League, which had been around since the beginning of time. And just having that very first 300, getting that one off of your back was unbelievably special. And I was bowling with all my buddies that we played softball with. We kind of had gotten to a point where softball wasn't going to be really in the cards much longer. So we had like 10, 11 guys on one team, and we'd bowl every other week, but I'd bowl every week. And so all my buddies were there for it. And even after Airport shut down and they put it on K-Bid, I tried to get the masking unit for 5 and 6. Wasn't able to do it because they were selling it as a lot. But that's one of my favorites. I also shot another 300 at the St. Paul City tournament at what was that bowling alley in St. Paul off Snelling? That you had to go down the stairs. It's no longer
Midway Pro Bowl?
Midway Pro Bowl. Yep. And so I shot that, my second one there. The 2 at Twin Cities Masters League. I shot one at Earl Brown as well. A big night was my 797, where I almost was the first one to get it, first one to get the 800 between me and Jessica. My dad was in failing health but always loved to still hear the bowling stories, and usually would just say, that's just ridiculous. If I shot something big, he'd go, you're just ridiculous, and, but I had never had that 800. And I really wanted to be able to go and tell him that I finally got it. I didn't get it. And actually that night I went out to the car and kind of sobbed a little bit because I wasn't able to do it. But, it's stuff like that are some of the highlights. Nowadays I've kind of got reintroduced to the MSC, the senior tournaments that they have going on, and going back and seeing a bunch of the old timers, like us, that like me anyway, and being able to compete, against them, and seeing Johnny Holmes there, and so I still follow them. on their Facebook pages since I wasn't able to bowl this year. But seeing a lot of those guys again and competing with them again has been also a big highlight. So.
Yeah, I'm about 4 years away from that, but man, I've been to a couple of those events, live streamed one of them. There's some good competition out there. I don't care what age those guys are at.
Right. Those guys can flat out bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
No
It
doubt.
is fun to watch.
Yeah. Derek wants to know what ball brands you throw.
I'm usually throwing Roto Grip now.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Derek's a Brunswick guy, so
Okay.
he always asks. But what about here? You sent this picture over. Looks like you're at the Open Championships in Tulsa.
Yeah. Yep. That was the very first one I bowled in and went down there with my dad and his team down there. And that was the very first one of many that I bowled. So that's a great memory. We drove down there in some guy's big conversion van, and it's a great memory I have with my dad to be able to go and do that with those guys. Yeah.
You mentioned that on New Year's Day in 2020, you had a nice run at the That's What I Do New Year's Day event. You said it was days after your father passed away.
Yep.
I asked Danny Hatton about it. She didn't remember, but don't take offense because she couldn't tell me who won this year's New Year's Day tournament.
Yeah.
But tell us about that.
Yeah, it was my dad passed just before Christmas that year, and we had gone out for New Year's Eve at Palmer Lake VFW, and I was buying shots for everyone, and I was also doing that myself. So I woke up the next morning, but I was just like, should I go and bowl it? And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to go bowl for my dad. Even though how hungover I was, I went and bowled, and it was a no-tap tournament. So I felt a little bit better about that because I knew I was okay hitting the head pin, and did extremely well. And ended up winning the gold. I think it's their gold division part of the tournament. So, yeah, that was a special day. My wife even came and watched me. I don't know why, but again, but yeah, that was a great time. And Mike Hatton and those guys run great tournaments. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
I've bowled many of them, and he really does. For those of us that can't really keep up, with the CBA crowd, that's a good option for me anyway. So you end up getting into coaching too. You had done some coaching in Richfield, but nowadays, as you mentioned, you're with two other coaches at St. Anthony. Tell us about how that came to be and why St. Anthony.
Yeah, over the years, and as I've gotten older, I've always thought that, thoughts become things. And my wife and I, we don't have kids. And I had done a lot of work with Young Life, which is a non-denominational outreach program for high school and junior high kids, just to kind of get them interested in hopefully going back to their church, But my wife and I were talking, and I just said, I need to do something to give back to the community. I need to do some kind of volunteering. I have the time. And I was scrolling through Facebook one night, and the Minnesota Bowling Message Board had, we need coaches. The high school teams need coaches. And I reached out to Josh Hodney, who posted it, and he called me back the next day and he said, well, where do you live? And I told him I live in Northeast Minneapolis, St. Anthony area. And he said, you got to be kidding me. Because Lynn Anderson, who has ran the team forever, is getting, I'm not going to say her age. I almost did. But she's getting up there in age and wanted to find someone else to come in and help. And so then I talked to Lynn, talked to Tim Peterson, and they brought me on. And the greatest thing was Lynn said, I'll still do all the paperwork. And I'm like, I'm in for sure then.
Now you're
right?
talking.
Yeah. And we have a bunch of great kids from St. Anthony and also from Edison. And we've gone to state the last 2 years. And it's just been a joy to be around those kids and trying to teach them, trying to get them out of the bad habits that we all have, and we have some very, very good kids that have come out of that program. So
yeah,
very cool. It's been quite the experience.
Yeah. To have that kind of success at the high school level has got to feel great. I mean, what does it take to have a team that reaches those heights, that gets to state, that wins state? Like I said, Baker's system, there's a little different mindset in that than there is in just your traditional league, right?
Yeah, for sure. And we really talk about team, and we talk about, just like what's the most important thing about golf is what you do around the green and making putts. It's picking up spares. And we go through drills each week where I have them go and, hit the head pin, then they have to hit the 2 pin, then they have to hit the 3, and so on and so forth. And just working on picking up the different pins. And that has really, really helped them focus on where to stand, how to approach, different oil conditions. And it's still like, wrangling cats at times, with the different personalities. But when they get on the lanes and they're competing, they really are a team. And, they're very close knit, and it's from what, me and Tim and Lynn can bring to them each week during practice, so it's not us, but it is them, taking those little nuggets that we give them and really putting them into their game. So
I'm assuming you have a home center where you have practices and things like that.
Yeah, we're lucky enough to have it at Elsie's, which is just
cool.
down the road too. So, and Mike and Tim Tuttle are great ambassadors for the game. So they're more than happy to have us.
Sure, that's great. How long do you see yourself continuing to do that, coach high school?
I will, as long as they will have me. Or as long as Josh Hodney will let me do it. Yeah. he and I are like this at times, but he's a good guy. I mean, as long as they'll have me, and my work, the company I work for, we do give back days. Mine's a give back season for the bowling, and they're all about it. They're like, you go and do it. I always get all my stuff done for sales that I need to do, contact everyone I need. So I have that time to be able to give back. So,
cool. Yeah. You haven't been able to, to bowl yourself in a little while. What's it going to take for you to get back on the lanes, and how soon do you think you'll be able to do that?
Well, I think I could bowl now. Okay. But it's towards the end of the season, so I'm just going to kind of let it go. But it's an old workman's comp injury that's turned into degenerative discs. And, eventually I might have to have surgery on it. But right now I feel really pretty good. And I go to see the chiropractor a couple times a week. And I just actually golfed in a little tournament in California that a buddy of mine puts on, just 8 guys. And we put 8 pieces of KT tape on my back to allow me to be able to do it. And actually that KT tape is incredible stuff. I felt very, very secure being able to do it. So if I did bowl, I'd have to go and do that. And I think I could do it right now, but I'm just going to wait till next season.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool. Well, I hope you're able to, get back up to the level you're expecting, because injuries suck no matter what they are, and always good to, we all love a comeback, especially in this sport. So
LL Cool J once said, "Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years." Right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no doubt. All right. So on this show that we go off the sheet by asking you to challenge somebody else. It doesn't have to be the greatest bowler in the world, but somebody who's passionate about the sport and has the unique story to tell to be on a future episode. So, Tom Mitchell, who do you want to see coming up in the future on Bowling with the Fef?
I'm going to throw a little curveball at this. I thought about this quite a bit, and I'm challenging Mike and Tim Tuttle as proprietors of LCs and Split Rocks and Tuttles and Mermaid, right? Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. And then other proprietors or even general managers like Brent Predis or even like Lumpy Dave Langer to come on in and talk about league bowling, because all of those places, whether it's Cedar Vale or any of the Tuttles places or Langer out at Flaherty's, has a great league following. And where a lot of these houses are doing just open bowling all the time. I was worried for a long time that our era was going to be the last era of league bowling, until I start going to some of these junior tournaments, whether it's the high school tournaments or the MJBTs that Darren Hansen puts on, and you see the amount of kids that show up. But if you take a look at that in percentage, we need a lot more coming through the pipeline. And this is a sport that you can do your whole life, and I don't want to see that go away. So my idea is to almost have like a little round table of how do you keep successful leagues going? How do you bring those juniors back into play and get them into the league bowling? So take that with what you will, and hopefully that's something that can happen.
I love that idea. As it turns out, I actually do have Brent scheduled to be on another show this spring that we're going to do live from Cedar Vale. Lisa Wagner challenged him. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, right. He better show up.
You gotta take her up on that. But
yep.
No, that's a fantastic idea, and you're right. I mean, league is kind of the lifeblood of bowling, as guys like you and I know. It's it's the competitiveness. It's the the purest form of the game, whatever you want to call it. And you're right. Without a strong junior program that produces adult bowlers, what do you have?
Yeah. Right.
So
right.
No, that would be awesome to do something like that, and I think that has the potential to impact the industry as a whole, which is something that could be very special. Okay, so our next show is coming up a week from today. If you want to kind of pin your ears back and tell me about Jeff Miller, because he's commented a couple times, and he's coming on Monday, February 26th at 7. So give us a little preview. What do we need to know about Jeff before he comes on?
Well, Jeff is a sneaky, decent bowler. The way I like to say it, he is damn good for the disability with his eyes that he has. He's basically blind in one eye. And it has amazed me over the years how well he does bowl, and he, like me, grew up bowling. His dad bowled, and he'd go and watch his dad, and I bowled with him for many years. He's one of my favorite friends in the world, and just a great guy. And he's even shot some 300s. So, I mean, it's to hear his story, with the disability that he has is very compelling. And I think it's going to be a great show to have him on for sure.
I had the good fortune to speak with him over the phone a little bit. And you can tell that the passion is certainly there, and that's always good to see. And knowing Jessica a little bit, I mean, it's obvious where she gets it from. So yeah.
Well, she gets more of that from her Godfather, let's face
it. Of course. We'll just have to convince Jeff that that's actually what's going on here. But
I've told him that.
Okay. Yeah. And we'll have him on live again Monday, February 26th, 7 p.m. Central, right here on the channel. Tom, it has been a pleasure getting to know you and your bowling story. Thanks so much for the time and for making this work. Better late than never, because we were actually scheduled weeks ago, but you were good enough to move this back for the sake of my sanity.
Well, we got to keep the gals happy, right? Is what I think I told you.
Yep,
yeah, no,
right.
it was an honor to be on here. I look forward to the merch. I'm going to get myself a hoodie, and I will wear it proudly, my friend.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And I appreciate everyone joining us tonight. A lot of good live chatter, which is great. If you're still on, please feel free to subscribe and like this video if you like what you saw here. It certainly helps me make content and helps you watch content.